Shalom. This week's Torah portion is Parashat Pinchas. The parsha opens with the 10th verse of chapter 25 of the book of Numbers as a direct continuation of the drama that confronted us at the conclusion of last week's Torah portion of Balak. After failing to curse the children of Israel, Bilam's parting advice to their king Balak had been, why don't you try and trip up the Israelites through promiscuity, which will in turn lead them to idolatry. The women will seduce them to worship the Baal Peor, and then their God will really get angry after all. That's precisely what happened, because Hashem really despises sexual immorality, and all the flaring wrath of Hashem that had been avoided when Bilam failed to curse the people during God's moments of anger did come to pass as a result of this. Then, all of a sudden, and we're still reading from the end of last week's parasha, we read, behold, an Israelite man came and brought the Midianite woman to his brethren before the eyes of Moshe and before the eyes of the entire congregation of the children of Israel, while they were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aharon, the Kohen, saw this, arose from the congregation, took a spear in his hand. He went after the Israelite man into the chamber and drove it through both of them, the Israelite man and the woman through her stomach, and the plague ceased from the children of Israel. Those that died in the plague numbered 24,000. So, in an act of unspeakable brazenness, chutzpah, an Israelite man, actually he was a chieftain, he was a prince of one of the tribes, who finally gets named in our parsha, he takes a Midianite woman and sins with her before the eyes of Moshe, all the leadership, the elders, and the entire nation. And regarding Israel's leadership, the verse says, still in last week's Torah portion, that they were weeping at the entrance to the tent of meeting. We have been taught that the reason for this weeping was that Moshe, and for that matter all the elders, did not know what to do. They forgot what punishment is applicable or what policy should be pursued in this particular situation. After all, the court can only punish if there were witnesses, but if a warning had been issued. And here, this is all happening at once. But in contrast to their tears, as we read in verse 7, Aaron's grandson Pinchas saw this, got up, took a spear, and basically skewered them both. Then the plague stopped. So now, our parsha of Pinchas begins. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron the Kohen, has turned my anger away from the children of Israel by his zealously avenging me among them, so that I did not destroy the children of Israel because of my zeal. And then, most remarkably, I think, we read, Hashem says, therefore say, behold, I give him my covenant of peace. And Rashi explains on these words, my covenant of peace, he says, that it should be a covenant of peace for him, just as a man owes gratitude and favor to someone who did him a favor, so here God expressed to him his feelings of peace. Now this in itself is amazing, this expression of Hashem's feelings. You know, we get to this parsha, and everybody seems to have an opinion about Pinchas and what he did. A lot of people look at this incident in a disparaging or critical or narrow way, and they talk about zealousness or vengeance like they're dirty words, and give the impression that Pinchas was some sort of wayward youth or some sort of irresponsible hothead. But that's not what Hashem said. He said, because Pinchas zealously avenged my vengeance among them, I did not consume the children of Israel in my vengeance, and therefore say, behold, I give him my covenant of peace. And this might be the exact opposite of what you'd think. So who was Pinchas anyway? Who was he? I want to keep it simple today. He was Aaron's grandson, the son of Aaron's son Elazar. Yes, it's true that there's also an amazing teaching about how this Pinchas became transformed into the prophet Elijah who lives forever. We've discussed this in the past, but today I want to focus on the simple level of meaning. He was Aaron's grandson. He was a Kohen, and that in itself is amazing, because everybody knows that the Kohanim who serve in the Holy Temple, they are God's agents in this world. their service in the Holy Temple brings down all of God's blessing into the world. They are synonymous with the midah, the attribute of chesed, of kindness. Well, Pinchas' act doesn't exactly seem to us as a reflection of kindness. Furthermore, if he was the son of Elazar, Aharon, the high priest's own grandson, was he not already a Kohen? What then is the meaning of the next verse? And it shall be for him and his offspring after him a covenant of eternal priesthood, because he took vengeance, there's that word again, for his God, and he atoned for the children of Israel. But wasn't he already a Kohen? So this is what Rashi explains, again in his simple style, on this idea of the eternal covenant of the kuhuna, the priesthood, that was given to Pinchas. He says, and I quote, although the kuhuna, the priesthood, had already been given to Aaron's descendants, it had been given only to Aaron and his sons who were anointed with him at the time, and to their children whom they would beget after their anointment. Pinchas, however, who was born before that and had never been anointed, had not been included in the kuhuna until now. And thus we learn in Tractate Zvachim 101b, Pinchas was not made a Kohen until he killed Zimri. What is this really all about? What is this Torah portion really all about? The Torah portion of Pinchas also includes, in addition to a census, another recount of the entire nation taken after the plague, our portion of Pinchas also includes the important watershed precedent of the righteous and holy daughters of Tzlafchad, who initiated an inheritance for women in the land of Israel. Right after that, God shows Moshe the land of Israel was ostensibly is the first stage in the preparation for his departure from his world, from this world, his death. Moshe then asks God to appoint a successor. And then, at the beginning of chapter 28, all of the offerings that are to be brought in the Holy Temple, beginning with the daily Tamid offering and on to the Musaf, additional offerings, Shabbat, Rosh Chodesh, and those offerings to be brought on every holy day, all the Chagim, the festivals, they're all enumerated here throughout the entire cycle of the year. Here in Parashat Pinchas, could all these topics be connected? Open up your heart in the deepest way. There's so much meaning here, and there is so much that connects everything in this Parsha, Parashat Pinchas. And the key to understanding all of this is all about the passage between the generation of the desert to the generation that would be entering Eretz Israel, the land of Israel. This is a new generation that needs a new type of leader and a new Kohen, and a new approach to life, a new style of endeavor. You know, Pinchas was ready to give his life for Hashem's honor and forfeit the priesthood, and in the reciprocity of Hashem's measure for measure system, midah keneged midah, God rewarded him with eternal priesthood because he had been willing to give it all up. Through his act of revenge, Pinchas awakened the desire to act for Hashem's honor and a feeling of teshuvah in the hearts of all of Israel. That's why the priesthood was given to him now, because it's the Kohen who awakens and motivates all of Israel through his actions. It is the Kohen who is the messenger to offer their offerings and to bring their service before Hashem. Our sages teach regarding Pinchas that by din, meaning by right, legally, through his selfless act of zeal, Pinchas earned this priesthood. You see, everything is being prepared now. Everything is ready and prepared for the next generation. I will explain. The generation of the desert was the aspect of the written Torah, which they received at Mount Sinai, the aspect of Moshe and Aaron, who had been prepared as priests for them, for that generation, the generation of the desert. Everything about Moshe and everything about his leadership, everything he did, was by heavenly direction. An idea expressed by our sages with the expression that the Shekhinah spoke from Moshe's throat. Everything was directly from Hashem. But now comes the dawning of a new age, heralding the entrance into the land, and it will be the age of leadership through serving Hashem, through self-motivated action, self-generated, not led by heaven, but requiring man to make the first move. And this is a reflection of the nature of the oral Torah, as demonstrated by Pinchas's action. The older leadership wept because they could not recall the proper response. What that really means is that they could not relate to it. And what was the proper response in the case of an Israelite who would publicly sin with a Midianite woman? It was a law passed down by tradition in the oral Torah, meaning spoken by God and transmitted orally by God to Moshe at Mount Sinai, namely, the law being that a zealous man shall strike them. Pinchas, a new leader of this generation, was that zealous man, feeling the zeal of avenging Hashem's honor. This type of behavior, unknown and forgotten to the previous generation, the generation of the desert, is a manifestation of the generation of the land. Now begins the aspect of Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, which will not be about being led by heaven, about the Shekhinah speaking for us, but rather about man making the first move, what is known by the Kabbalists as the lower arousal, the aspect of man's initiative. Thus, Pinchas's priesthood, the game changer, directly precedes Joshua's appointment over the children of Israel. Pinchas, the man of action, perfectly represents this new generation of action, whose rectification and duty will be dependent on action. Open up your hearts in the deepest way. This is so beautiful. This is so amazing. This is precisely why the daily and additional offerings are given over here in this Torah portion. These korbanot, these offerings of the temple service, represent nothing less than the concept of tying, of connecting together all the levels of creation to Hashem through our action. Your heart still open? This is breathtaking, this thought. And thus, the action-oriented tikkun, rectification, fixing of our lives in the land, is also accomplished through the aspect of time. The generation of the desert was above time and space. Forget about it. They were above time and space. Their lives and their relationship with God was so rarefied. But the generation of the land will be living within time and space and sanctifying both through their lives. And the perfection of this space-time continuum is the offerings that are brought throughout the year on the days that proclaim holiness through their very essence. The chagim, the offerings in the Holy Temple, life, time, space, all refracted through the prism of preparation for the new generation, a generation of action, the generation of the land of Israel, the generation of individuals like Pinchas. Moshe, who's the greatest, was all about bringing Hashem's ratzon, Hashem's will, into this world, according to the characteristic of the generation of the desert, from top to bottom, from heaven to earth. But now begins the era of the yearning and desire of the tachtonim, meaning the bottom dwellers, meaning we, human beings, man, upwards. So, the righteous daughters of Tzlafchad came before Moshe, and they asked for a portion in the land. Hashem said, the daughters of Tzlafchad speak correctly. Tell me, why are those words even necessary? All the verse had to state could have started with the words after these directly. You shall surely give them a possession. Why start with the words they speak correctly? Because the words they speak correctly come to teach us that this whole change in reality, in the rules, that now women in this particular situation that they find themselves in can receive a portion, only came about through their words, through their initiative. Now all the concepts here are connected. The priesthood of Pinchas, and God's command to harass the Midianites, and the census, and the allusion to the impending death of Moshe, because now we are beginning the illumination of the generation that enters into the land, the generation of the land of Israel, which is a whole new and different level. Thus a new counting of the people is required. And, open up your heart in the deepest way, as Aaron the priest was given to the generation of the desert, so too, this generation was given the kahuna, the priesthood of Pinchas. The generation of the desert experienced life on a level transcending nature. Through the greatness of Moshe and the priesthood of Aaron, this was all a present from heaven, every aspect of their lives, the manna, the clouds of glory, the well of Miriam, going back to the miracles of Egypt and to the Exodus. But Pinchas, by din, by right, he acquired the priesthood because commensurate to the changing generation, Now everything was going to be about the avodah, meaning the service of God, meaning essentially the stuff of our lives, everything that we do. Everything was going to be hinging upon the initiative of man, known as the lower arousal. It's up to us. A reflection of the concept of the oral Torah, which is exactly the idea of the zealous man making the strike. Because the situation that Pinchas responded to, this was not a case for the Sanhedrin. The din, the law transmitted by tradition, is that justice here can only be meted out swiftly by one who is zealous for Hashem. The Jewish people, through their actions, are given the ability to change the Torah's rules of engagement. This is Hashem's plan. That's the thing about the oral Torah. Open up your hearts. It was all given at Sinai, but it's given over for the Bnei Yisrael to bring it from the realm of the potential to the realm of actuality, of action. And Moshe was so great and so holy, but he couldn't have been the one to have killed this man who was desecrating Hashem. It had to be Pinchas. Pinchas, who received God's covenant of everlasting peace, because the leadership of Moshe, it was directed by heaven. It wasn't man-made. It wasn't from men, but it was from heaven. In the apex of Moshe's time at the sea, when the Egyptians were in pursuit, Moshe says in Exodus 14:14, Hashem shall make war for you, and you remain silent. Generation of the desert. But now, following Pinchas' action on the eve of entering into the land, 25:16 here in our parsha, Hashem says to Moshe, harass the Midianites and smite them, fight. That's the generation of the land. This is the lesson of Pinchas, archetype and builder of a new generation, the generation of Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Action is the key, sanctifying our lives through everything that we do to bring Hashem's will, His light, His desire, His presence, His Shekhinah into this world.